Hello there, you are listening to The Screen Queen, where you'll be finding your favorite movie or your favorite television show and learning something new. You'll just have to listen to find out. Here is your host, Samantha Parrish. Hello there, and welcome back to the show. As always, my name is Samantha Parrish, and you are listening to The Screen Queen. So after the 100th episode celebration, your media queen took a very much needed vacation in her summer vacation. Oh my goodness. That 2-week break did everything that I needed to be able to bounce back and be your movie host. And I find it absolutely hilarious that we are starting with the most successful sequel of a movie that I didn't even grow up with. Yep. The way I always saw Shrek was like this forbidden treasure that kids were gifted, that it was okay to have a sense of humor that wasn't just gonna be playing it safe. Shrek was the best wild card that DreamWorks ever put out. They made a movie that made parents tug at their collars wondering, can I show my child this? Something that definitely has adult humor, but making you wonder, how adult is this child's film? And that's the beautiful thing about Shrek, is how it's able to utilize adult humor in a children's film. But this was a kid's movie that was basically written to be a middle finger to Disney. And then that middle finger to Disney gets a sequel. It's freaking wild to look at. After 20 years, that's basically what Shrek 2 is. It's a sequel to a middle finger. And now, here we are, 20 years later, to discuss how it's aged. So here is Shrek 2. So as always, I do the recap on what movie we'll be talking about, but I am fairly certain that everyone knows who Shrek is and what the plot of Shrek 2 is. So I thought I'd share why I didn't really know Shrek that well as a kid. So I mentioned earlier that I didn't have Shrek a part of my childhood. And I wanted to start out with this story so you knew how much the impact had and how much of a risk Shrek was at first before we got the sequel. So I asked my mom, why was it that Shrek wasn't allowed in the stuff I watched? And my mom said, the sense of humor alarmed me, which I find absolutely hilarious because my mother has the same sense of humor as Shrek. I grew up with fart jokes. My mom could do like a combination of Jim Carrey and Mike Myers. She can send them both packing like Eminem sent all the rappers in 8 Mile. Like she's a comedy queen. But my mom recognized that humor because she uses it and was like, I can't have my child around that and have to explain to my parents why my daughter is making fart noises like me. So I could understand the decision, but I also look at the irony considering that this is the type of humor I've always been acclimated to because of my mom. So watching Shrek, I'm like, okay, I've heard this spiel before. But even though I didn't grow up with Shrek, the phenomenon was hard to escape. Like I said, even people that might not have seen Shrek or haven't seen it for years will always know this is the Green Ogre voiced by Mike Myers and The Adventures of Donkey, and that they got a sequel. Like, I still remember when they advertised it. Even when I was almost 10 years old, I could grasp what they were doing for the sequel of a movie I've never even seen, but I could catch on to it. It is genius what they did. And the fact that I remember it 20 years later, that's pretty phenomenal. You know, they're doing a good job, and like clearly it shows. Before even the fucking thing is out, it was doing a good job. Like I said, Shrek 2 is technically considered a sequel to a middle finger to Disney. And the way that I look at Shrek 2 now, it's actually phenomenal how it became a bigger middle finger to Disney. Shrek 2 was the first animated sequel. This was the first animated film with a sequel that was nominated and won an Academy Award. None other have done that before. Think about that. Disney or any of the other departments could not do what Shrek 2 did. So this means Shrek made history twice. And looking at how they did the planning for Shrek 2 shows that they weren't messing around. With most sequels that come out, it's just this expectancy that you can regurgitate past plot lines. And, well, yeah, Shrek does still do the whole thing of the insecurities that he has towards his marriage to Fiona and, like, Donkey needing a moment. Like, they're still, continuing the arcs, which, it's sequel 101, baby. And Shrek 2 did it better than most sequels ever do. Like, you're doing something right when you have something that you feel is fluid. But the fact that they utilize this chance to not only be a parody continuing fairy tales, but to parody Hollywood itself. I mean, the middle finger just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I know I've been harping on Shrek being this fuck you to Disney, and well, yes, it is. But at the same time, the fact that the way that they made fun of Hollywood in such a unique, funny way that you could still get it across to kids, but you could still tell the jokes were being very terse, like when they made fun of cops or having Joan Rivers at this fairy tale Oscar ceremony. The way that they cleverly made fun of everything in a way that felt fresh. Like, it's so good that people have to differentiate which part of the Shrek series you're talking about, and 9 times out of 10, people are talking about Shrek 2 more than Shrek 1. So, I'm going to slow the roll on the commentary on Shrek 2 because there is a fun fact that I have honestly been dying to share because it's one of my favorite fun facts that lives in my head rent-free. I say that about a lot of fun facts that I've heard on the show. But this one hits on a different note when you hear the story. So Rupert Everett, who is the voice of Prince Charming, and honestly, there's no other person that could play this type of bitchy Prince Charming except Rupert Everett, who gave the right amount of bitchiness and turdiness to this role. And he was told no numerous times by other movies where he wanted to play a prince. It was like one of his goals was getting to play a prince. And the man had been told no so many times. So Shrek 2 comes along with the role for a prince and he's like, all right, I'll get into it. Let's see if I get it. And then boom, he got the role that he'd been waiting for, even if it was slightly altered than how he would have played a prince. But this also means that he was one of the first actors to ever play a unique prince that we haven't gotten before. But the fact that he was told no so many times and Shrek 2 said yes, it feels a little bit more fulfilling because this is a franchise where you don't always get what you want, but something works out for you. And to see how that premise worked into the way of one of their actors, it's kind of beautiful. It's like a wonderful little fairy tale story that happened to this actor, that he got to have what he wanted, even if it wasn't the way that he probably expected his life to go. But now, where would we be without his performance as Prince Charming? He brought so much to that character that now it's impossible to not see Prince Charming's audio anywhere. You can go on TikTok, Instagram, anywhere, and you have probably heard, "Not now, kitten whiskers. Daddy will discuss it later." No one else could do that. Like, he did so much for this character that now it's become separated from Shrek 2 to become its own entity as a meme. I mean, sure, you're going to know it always comes from Shrek 2, but it, began a life of its own. So when you hear a meme on TikTok or Instagram that has an audio sampling, know that it comes from a man that has been wanting to play a prince all this time and got his chance, and look how the fuck it turned out. But then there's my other favorite fun fact, and honestly, I'm a little shocked no one heard of this. And I still shock myself whenever I relearn this fun fact that Larry King is the voice of the ugly stepsister. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't grow up with Shrek. I did grow up with Larry King, and I didn't catch on to it. And no matter how many times I've watched this movie, I'm still shocked to find out that Larry King is the voice of the ugly stepsister. When I shared this fun fact with my best friend Ams, and we were discussing how did that happen, and we were like, oh, Larry King didn't have to audition. Like, it's obviously a joke. With the fact that Shrek 2 is angled towards making fun of celebrities, to have a well-known anchor gremlin like Larry King voicing ugly stepsister, I mean, that's comedy gold writing itself right there. Like, no work had to be done. It's nice to see that this is a film that, yes, has a lot of work put into it, but knowing they made their life 10 times easier by letting the jokes write themselves. Like, that just takes care of everything. There's no other way I could have seen that work without Larry King. And the fact that it kind of lives off in this, like, strange, like, special place within the film that, yeah, it's not well known, but once you do, it's, like, kind of cool to know that Larry King is a part of one of the successful sequels of all time, playing an ugly stepsister. You know, it makes me wonder how they pitched that to him. Like, hey, do you want to play the ugly stepsister? And he's like, I've probably been called one. I don't know. I love to know how that conversation goes, but I love to know that it exists within this film, that he's a part of it. But speaking on that, it kind of feels like the cast was cleverly made because of how they almost feel like references. When you go with the sequel, you go big or go home. Like, if I had the power, I would definitely want to choose people that have already been in the realm of fairy tales to continue my joke about fairy tales. You give me Mary Poppins voicing the queen, and you give me the frog from Swan Princess voicing the king. Oh my god. I mean, it's comedy gold, but at the same time, it feels like a fun, fresh way to add on to a resume. There are so many talented people in this movie, and the fact that you know you can pick them out from someplace and not feel that the reference is going to shadow over the plot. It's storytelling done right. It's like my favorite thing when it comes to casting is getting people that are not going to outshine the rest of the film, but you catch onto the reference and you want to see what they're going to do. And it's like severely underrated with how much talent is in this movie, and it's not talked about enough. But at the same time, I feel like that's a good thing, to not overdose someone's performance in a film so you can still go back and enjoy it. I love the chance to go back and rewatch Shrek 2 and enjoy that I forgot Antonio Banderas was in this movie, or forgetting about John Cleese or Julie Andrews, that I can still have that feeling every single time. It's like when you watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit, every time feels like the first time. So I actually have a fun fact that I just learned that changes the way that I just saw Shrek 2 and the whole Shrek franchise. So this is going to blow y'all's mind. I just read here, the producers swear that they decided to put a Justin Timberlake poster above Princess Fiona's bed. They had no idea that Cameron Diaz had just started dating the singer in real life. And I put the pieces together very quickly that Justin Timberlake is in the third movie. And obviously, I mean, Justin Timberlake and Cameron Diaz did not work out, even though she ended up with another singer that she was in sync with more. But that's actually a really funny nod. The producers were just like, oh, we just wanted to make a 2000s reference. We didn't know that you were actually dating this guy, but then the irony that he would go on to it. So their inside joke led to a casting, an accidental casting that is 100% an accidental casting, not knowing like the connections. That's every flavor of hilarious. It's like finding more ways to fall in love with Shrek 2. Now, I want to go ahead and gab a little bit about Puss in Boots, because I feel like it'd be a crime if I didn't talk about what is considered one of the most popular characters and one of the most game-changing characters that was literally just made to be a joke. With the introduction of Puss in Boots being a very unique type of fairy tale character that fits into the mold of Shrek's gang, where you have an ogre and a talking donkey and a sword wielding, swashbuckling cat voiced by Antonio Banderas. Like, it's a layer of comedy, but it also really spices everything up. I like that you have a character like Puss in Boots who has such a deadpan way of everything. that really intermingles well with Shrek and Donkey. And the chemistry between all three of them is perfection. Just chef's kiss. Amazing. But without Puss in Boots, I mean, Shrek really did get a second life thanks to Puss in Boots. Recently, we had the movie The Last Wish that I was told was a phenomenal film, and I got the chance to watch it myself, and I'm like, you're telling me that one of the most important films of last year is here if we didn't have Shrek 2? So it's kind of a crazy bookmark to think about, that this is where we had a change in animation history, and then it happened again with the creation of a sequel to a film called Puss in Boots. It's a huge stretch, I'm sorry. It's like hurting my head just having to talk about this stuff. But when you look at that entire stretch to go from Shrek 2 to Shrek the Third to Shrek Forever After, Puss in Boots to Puss in Boots The Last Wish, it's a phenomenal stretch to know how far that this series has come, to go in this giant roller coaster and then right back to Puss in Boots again, to still utilize one of the most popular characters. I mean, honestly, I love Shrek 2, but Puss in Boots is my favorite character. I really love the way they did this character. The writing behind Puss in Boots was so great. The comedy for Puss in Boots is so great. And the fact that they didn't just let this character go to waste. I did see the first Puss in Boots and I was like, okay. Then they gave a sequel that realized, holy shit, we have a really great character and we made a historical moment with Shrek 2. Let's do this shit again. And made something so great that you could literally put Shrek 2 and Puss in Boots, The Last Wish together, and it's like a wonderful sequel sandwich. So it's ironic considering that the second installments of this franchise still does a great job. And at the tail of it is Puss in Boots. Like, it's a stretch, but it's a stretch that I like to think about once in a while. So there are many things that we can connect to for Shrek 2, whether it's Puss in Boots or the characters themselves, the numerous references to fairy tales. But you know what I'm going with this, that no matter what you look at for this film, the holding out for a hero scene is the pinnacle of this film. And it's hard not to see why. But here's the funny thing, though. I did not get introduced to this song from Shrek 2. I actually got to experience how this song began a life of its own outside of the movie. I actually found these songs in certain videos on YouTube, like Naruto music videos, and then, it's not too hard to see my favorite song, but I was shocked to see it wasn't the Bonnie Tyler version, so that's how I ended up getting introduced to it. I mean, naturally, we're going to have like numerous references that Shrek has made and that people can reference Shrek 2, but at the heart of the references, it's holding out for a hero. The holding out for a hero scene is the reason why people talk about Shrek 2, and it's really not hard to see why not. Everything about this film is absolutely fantastic. Everything that went into it, you can tell had heart and soul to it. But when you take all of that and multiply it by 100, that is the holding out for a hero scene. Everything about it still feels just fucking amazing. It's a giant fucking gingerbread cookie, and it gave me the amount of intensity that I would watch from Speed. That is impressive, and it's really thanks to Jennifer Saunders making such a badass cover of this song that amplifies the moment, that really feels like you're still watching Shrek 2, but you're also watching something completely different at the same time. At least that's the way I feel about it, with the way that we got to have that roller coaster moment that we get into a movie. Jennifer Saunders basically led us into that roller coaster right there. Whoever it was that wrote this segment for holding out for a hero, I believe they should be given some kind of a Pulitzer or a Nobel Peace Prize, because the way that holding out for a hero brings people together, it's some damn good camaraderie, and Shrek 2 is bringing people together. So I was asked a question about that scene, in regards to how Bonnie Tyler feels about the song. And in a way, Bonnie Tyler has kind of almost been expunged from her own song, but to me it doesn't feel like that. I've never heard Bonnie Tyler say anything bad about the Shrek song. I've never heard anything at all, because if it did, it would have blown up because of how iconic that this song is, this cover. And when someone expresses their disdain, like, no one can forget a remark like that. And I think she's chill with it. The cover of Holding Out for a Hero still has that same amp in the same way that Bonnie Tyler originally did the song. And it exists in its own way, that it kind of just coexists together in the whole realm, that you do have an original song from Bonnie Tyler, and then you have the cover by Jennifer Saunders, and they still feel equally important and don't undermine each other. I love the song when they played it in Footloose, when Kevin Bacon is doing that weird chicken tractor thing, and then turn around to have it be used again as a cover. It still feels the same way. Like, people definitely understood the homework assignment to make sure that you go big or you go home. And, like, Shrek 2 sent us home with one of the best fucking covers ever. Even though I'm still feeling the confliction about Livin, La Vida, Loca, but that's my next point. So as much as I love that cover, I have to be honest that my all-time favorite cover from the entire Shrek series is the Livin, La Vida, Loca cover by Antonio Banderas and Eddie Murphy. Like, I've talked about Eddie Murphy before in my Beverly Hills Cop episode about him being one of my favorite comedians, but we rarely get to see him in the music realm. I love a lot of his songs. My mom showed me a majority of them, and I'm sad that Eddie Murphy didn't do a whole lot more, but it's nice to see that the music still exists within Shrek. We might not get something outside, but at least they utilized Eddie Murphy's talents as a musician in this movie. And the cover he did with Antonio Banderas is just so on point that I feel physically hurt that I don't have other covers like this in my life. If they could get Antonio Banderas and Eddie Murphy to do a song together in Shrek 5, I will ask for nothing else in my life. Livin' La Vida Loca was such a wonderful way to end the film, and I like how they always end it on a cover. And it almost feels like an overdose in a way that we've been given like so much media material in this film, and Shrek still has an identity beyond all of that, but that they're so good you want more. And that is one of the beautiful things about this sequel, is that you want more, but you also been given the hand that you have, that we had the perfect send-off of Shrek 2 to have a badass cover done by two amazing performers. But also, it just fits the vibe. So as one last little snippet, just for the fun of it, I'm going to share what my favorite scene is from Shrek 2. And it might surprise you guys that my favorite scene is actually the Cops parody. I die with laughter every time how they collectively and creatively parodied Cops in a way that made sense. Like, how do you watch TV in a realm that doesn't have technology yet, and your only technology is magic? And the fact that this is basically like a little window portal of watching the human version of Shrek and the horse version of Donkey and Puss in Boots just like trying to run away. And the fact that they parodied the freaking O.J. Simpson, like the layers of comedy. You have Shrek being peppered by a manual pepper grinder. Puss in Boots is being detained for having catnip. And Donkey screaming police brutality. It is just a perfect parody of Cops that also has such the kind of humor that just makes you go, oh, that hurt, how much that was accurate. And it bled into Shrek in such a wonderful way. Still is top notch. My favorite scene. So honestly, I think that's going to be a wrap on Shrek 2. As much as I would go on forever, I feel like that's the best way to kind of sum it up. It's a film that doesn't really need too much to talk about because it's so fun to just enjoy it. There are things that live in our mind rent-free from the scenes we've seen from Shrek and the way that Shrek 2 has kind of become immortalized on social media, that Shrek 2 is not going away anytime soon. But of all the films we've ever had that you keep getting over and over again, this is one film that we don't mind getting a little closer with. So that concludes the first episode of Anniversary August. Now, it is time to find out what the next episode is going to be for Anniversary August. So I got my little suggestions right here, and we're about to dive into it. Alrighty. No, I wrote one. I got one. Okay, I got one. What are you? Show me your secrets. Okay. I can be down for that one. That one sounds pretty good. Cool beans. All right. So the next episode for Anniversary August is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It actually kind of hurts that it's 10 years old, but we're going to get into that next week. Alrighty. Well, you all take care now and stay amazing. If you want to catch up with me in between uploads, you can find me on Instagram at the Queen of the Screen. If you want to talk about your favorite moment from Shrek 2, I'm all ears to that conversation. And if you're looking for another way to listen to your media queen, I am now available on YouTube. It has been the easiest way to get to listen to me, and I like things to be easy. And if you're interested in a book series that I wrote that has tons of movie references, you can find my book Inglorious Inc. and its prequel, The Company of Crime, on Amazon. But I have that bad boy available in the description box. Alrighty, you all take care now. Stay amazing. This is your Screen Queen, signing off. Bye-bye!